First to Afghanistan. The UN Human Rights Chief says she's received credible reports of rights violations in areas under Taliban control. So what can the world do to protect Afghan women and girls? Well, speaking in Geneva at an emergency meeting, Michelle Bachelet called on the international community to create a dedicated body to monitor Afghanistan, and she warned the Taliban that the rights of women and girls are a red line. Speaking in Geneva at an emergency meeting of the UN Human Rights Council, Ms. Bachelet said there were harrowing reports of summary executions and restrictions on the rights of women, including the right to move around freely and girls' rights to attend school.
I strongly urge the Taliban to adopt norms of responsive governance and human rights and to work to re-establish social cohesion and reconciliation, including through respect for the rights of all who have suffered during the decades of conflict. A fundamental red line will be the Taliban's treatment of women and girls and respect for their rights to liberty, freedom of movement, education, self-expression and employment, guided by international human rights norms. Taliban spokespeople have made specific commitment to respect women's right to work and girls' right to attend school within the Taliban's interpretation of Islamic law. They have also said they will respect the rights of members of ethnic and religious minorities and refrain from reprisals against those who have worked with the government or the international community. The onus is now fully on the Taliban to translate this commitment into reality. In seizing effective control of much of the country, they must ensure in those areas ongoing respect for the international human rights commitments made by the state, as well as ensuring ongoing and indeed heightened provision of essential public services without discrimination to all.
And that's the UN Human Rights Chief there, Michelle Bachelet. Well, my next guest, Professor Mary Sully de Luque, is part of a project at the Arizona State University called Project Artemis, which has been empowering women in Afghanistan, helping them to start businesses, become better educated, and become entrepreneurs. And she joins me now from the US. Thank you very much indeed, Professor de Luque, for joining us there. How do you judge the first steps made by the Taliban so far since they took over all of Afghanistan? I mean, because there's been an effort to reassure Afghans and the international community, but of course many doubt their sincerity.
Yes, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having me on your program. Yeah, we are concerned about what the Taliban is espousing now. We in business like to think your prior performance is an indicator of your future performance, and much of what the Taliban is saying right now is what they said back in the 90s, when that women were going to be treated along the lines of Sharia law, but it remains to be seen how that's going to be interpreted. It is worrisome. We've had this program with Thunderbird School of Global Management at Arizona State University called Project Artemis. We started it in 2005. We've had 6 cohorts. We bring women entrepreneurs from Afghanistan to our campus. The last cohort was in 2016, and we didn't come to the U.S. We did the program in India, and it was quite successful. We are in communication with women in Afghanistan now, and we are trying to make connections, trying to help them secure safe passage. We are concerned because it doesn't bode well what their past performance and their past actions are going forward.
Well, let's drill down a bit further on what you were saying there, because I heard not just yourself, but I think the head of the program at the Thunderbird School talking about helping Afghan women escape the Taliban. I know you've been working with public and private organizations in this regard. Tell us a bit more about that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm the academic director of the entire program, so all of the courses, the program itself that they went through, the 2-week program, I was the person who designed that with my team. The team of people from Thunderbird for Good, that's our office, that's our social impact office at the Thunderbird School, have been working, as well as others at Thunderbird, with our partners, our teams on the ground that we've worked with in the past in Afghanistan, throughout Afghanistan, to try for safe passage for our women and their families. Many of these women go back, most of the women, actually almost all of the women, would go back to Afghanistan and run their businesses. And then in turn, many of them became leaders in their community. Some of them are leaders in the government. One of our women, Rangina Hamidi, I think she's currently still, she said she wasn't leaving her position. She was the Secretary of Education for the country, and she went through our program, quite a talented businesswoman. And there, persons such as her, women such as her, are targeted by the Taliban. Many of these women have been visited in their homes. They have been questioned. So it's really in our interest to try to secure safe passage for them, for their families. We don't know what's going to happen after the Taliban takes over. It remains to be seen. I saw your piece from the emergency meeting. It's concerning to us, of course. We have developed a network of women throughout Afghanistan that have gone through our program, and they have impacted many other women. They've trained other women in entrepreneurship. So many of them are also, would be probably considered of persons of interest to the Taliban to at least talk to. We know that some of these women are in danger, as are their families. So we are quite concerned.
Yes, so are a lot of people around the world. But what are the specific difficulties that you anticipate in this quest to save as many Afghan women as possible? And do you expect the Taliban to get in the way of that?
That's our concern, of course. We know that getting passage to the airport, and some of these women are in remote areas, so it's very difficult for them to get passage to the airport in Kabul. It can be a long journey. Some of them are trying to get out of the country in other ways. I really can't talk about exactly what we're doing, but we are working with many other groups, other agencies who are also interested in getting their people out, people who've been associated with aid agencies with different kinds of business endeavors. Interpreters especially is a big concern for us. We know that they are being stopped when they're trying to leave. There was a report that I recently read that some of the workers involved with the Americans, especially, and other international agencies, have been targeted by the Taliban, followed to their homes, even put paint on them so that they can be recognized, or that there was some sort of marking that lets the other Taliban members know that these people were working, those outside of Afghanistan or would be uninterested or in their regime to stay in Afghanistan because of their activities in business and with these aid agencies and our group. So yeah, it is a concern for us. We know that it's treacherous. We know that the Taliban, what they say on the ground are quite different. In many, we're weary, we're wary, we're also very heartbroken to see.
Yeah, I have to say, Professor Luque, your sound is breaking up a bit there. So we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back in a minute and continue talking with you, because what you're telling us is very interesting. But let's try and fiddle around with the equipment there and hope that we get better audio when we return. You're watching The Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat about the plight of women in Afghanistan under Taliban rule. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Enyagulu. Now, you might have heard the Taliban claiming to be a new, more moderate force, but the United Nations human rights chief has today detailed a damning list of alleged abuses that they are accused of carrying out. They include summary executions and restrictions on the rights of women and the rights of girls to attend school. As Michelle Bachelet warns that a fundamental red line will be the Taliban's treatment of women and girls. My guest today, Professor Mary Sully de Luque, is a member of the Arizona State University's Project Artemis, a unique program that supports Afghan women about the reality of Taliban rule for the women of Afghanistan. Professor Mary Sully de Luque is still with me on the line from the US. And where exactly are you in America? Are you in Arizona then?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yes, thank you. I know that this is a bit of a bad connection. I apologize for that. Yeah, yes, I'm here.
Okay, what do you think countries like the US should do in a situation where women's rights and empowerment and even their lives are threatened, such as you have in Afghanistan? What are your expectations in those circumstances of the US government?
It's the Thunderbird School of Global Management at ASU. We are committed to investing in economic empowerment of women. We have many programs that we run all over the world. We have been involved in Afghanistan since right after the fall of the Taliban. We have invested hours, countless years, 16 years we've been involved in the education of women, in business, helping some of our women who ran businesses. They had schools. They ran factories that employed only women. Women were widows that had no other options. We will do our best to continue to be involved as much as we can, especially to stay connected after the U.S. leaves Afghanistan. And we also are very obligated to the women and the families, people, interpreters, others who have worked with us over the years to try to get safe passage for them out of the country and then relocate them throughout the world. We don't know where that's going to be at the moment. Some of them have families in other countries. We're trying to enjoy them. We are working round the clock for the last couple of weeks to try.
Right. I hope you can hear me well, Professor de Luque, because I'm a little bit concerned about your audio there, and now you're sort of fading in and out, but I hope you can hear me. Do you, as an organization that's created, to use your own words, a powerful ripple through Afghan communities, helping to generate thousands of jobs and training thousands more people there, do you feel betrayed by what the US and its Western allies have done, pulling out of Afghanistan the way they did, and in a sense enabling the lightning advance and subsequent victory of the Taliban?
Well, I can't say that we feel betrayed, because there's been conflict in Afghanistan for decades, long before we were there, and the U.S. had any interest there, and long before that. Like other occupiers, for lack of a better word, they had incredible resilience. And we think that the seeds that we planted there, we hope, it's really our hope, will be able to continue to thrive, even under this oppressive regime. The women that we brought over, to hear their stories and to see their resilience and their persistence and their courage, I don't think that's going to go away. Are we disappointed? Certainly, I can't deny that, of course. But we do believe that we have a network that's been created there. It's a different world now with technology. And so the ability to communicate sort of under the radar exists where it didn't exist before. The Taliban also cannot really in secrecy like they were able to do in the past. I would say we're disappointed because we've invested so much time, but I also really have a lot of faith in the Afghan people and especially the women who we worked with, because we really got to see their resilience and their persistence and their drive to continue even under great hardship.
So basically, your hope now is that the US, NATO, and other sort of Western countries will improve arrangements to make further evacuations possible before it becomes too late for many of those who are vulnerable.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. Yes, it's our hope that we can get as many people out who would be considered a danger, especially imminent danger, before the doors close from the Taliban regime. They are saying now that they're not going to allow the deadline to be extended. I know that the agencies we're working with and the State Department and other international organizations and countries are doing their most to try to secure the safe passage of people who are at risk. There's all sorts of networks of people, even former military people who are working behind the scenes, and they're trying to help the people gain safe passage. And it may be through the airport, it may be through other borders. There's many ways to get those that we have worked with and those who are in danger out of the country. And we hope that the UN and other agencies and other governments will be able to put pressure on the Taliban to at least keep their word to this point. Whether that happens or not, we'll see. But especially for the evacuation, we're working very quickly and around the clock to make sure that we can get as many people out as possible who we think will be in danger under this renewed regime.
Right, and we've got about a minute and a half or so left before we have to end the chat. But I guess you and your fellow staff at Project Artemis can see more clearly now what you've accomplished in the devastation that is today's Afghanistan and what you've enabled many women to achieve there.
Yes, we have, and because there were so many women that were able to be educated through our programs, through women who had businesses, and the training that they received from the training we gave them, we really are hopeful that the seeds were planted prior to this. Many of the women, during the Taliban time, many of these women did not have the opportunity for education. We think that's very important. We certainly hope that this will continue. That some of these women are, even without education, were extremely bright, and they were very quick to pick up, all of the training that we gave them. There's a need out there. There's a want out there amongst the women. We know that investing in women is a good investment. Women tend to invest about between 80 and 90% of what they make back into their family and community. And so for development in Afghanistan and throughout the world, they're a good investment. But it's also just it's a fairness issue as well. The UN Global Compact, the SDG, the Sustainability Development Goal number 5 is equity for women, and we hope that, and it's our intention to keep working.
Professor Mary Sully de Luque, I apologize for interrupting you. Your sound has gone totally wonky there, but we appreciate the time that you've taken to talk to us. And Professor Mary Sully de Luque was talking to me there from Phoenix, Arizona.